Hello and welcome to the RTO Show podcast. I'm your host, Pete Chow. I've got somebody great today. Actually, I'm a little worried because I'm sitting in the hot seat. We got some legal counsel for the NSRA. But before we get started there, before we start talking to Nick, I want you guys to know, listen, half of the people listening are not subscribed. I need you to go on there, hit the subscription, hit the bell, get subscribed. You don't want to miss an episode, especially one that we have going on today. A little bit of homework for you guys. Make sure you go to the podcast website. It's rtoshowpodcast.com. Make sure you go down to the newsletter section, put your name, put your email. You don't want to miss out because we cover subjects there that we don't cover here. Also, we still have some sponsorships available. Make sure you go down there. Again, go to the website, click that little link on there. Help us out because you guys are the ones that we do it for. Now, I'm with Nick Gerard from the NSRA, legal counsel, attorney at law. God, I have some stuff here as an introduction. This is a long list of stuff. He's done very well for himself. He's I would have him as legal counsel too. So, Nick, how you doing today? How's everything going in Mississippi?
It's great, Pete. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate you and what you do for the industry, and no, everything's great down here. How are things in Tampa?
You know, it is sunny right now. Yesterday, 2 days ago, was it, Anthony? We had some winds, we had some rain, man, and it was
weather.
Reminiscent of our hurricane days, but then it went away in 10 minutes. So I'm not even arguing, but we need the rain, so I'm glad to get it. So just so you guys know, the NSRA is the National Shed Rental Association. Now, you guys hear me talk about APRO all the time. So the Association of Professional Rental Organizations is a sponsor of the show, and we do a lot with them. But I had no idea that the NSRA was actually part of APRO, which I was getting filled in at LegCon this year about Nick's involvement, what he does, and what he represents as far as legal counsel. So first question I got, Nick, is, do you know Ed Wynn, the legendary Ed Wynn?
Absolutely. Ed and Ed was, like a mentor to me. When I first started going to APRO event, I went to an APRO event in Daytona Beach. I don't know if that was 10 or 15 years ago. First saw Ed there, and then NSRA events over the years, and Ed would come and speak, do a legal update for all the shed guys. And so from that, I got to know Ed, and, he's just been, obviously he's one of a kind. Nobody can fill those shoes, but, he's just been wonderful. And, I think he must be enjoying retirement. So he,
listen, when I talk to Ed, he is definitely enjoying retirement. He's said on several occasions to me, like, no, I'm glad I'm retired. It is wonderful. It is excellent. So for those of you who don't know, Ed Wynn is the legal counsel, or was the legal counsel for APRO for over 40 years. He just retired not that long ago, and he is doing a great job. He's part of the Legend series, if you guys want to check that out. I love Ed Wynn because he has a wit and demeanor about him, and he's just a straight shooter, right? I mean, he just tells you like it is.
Exactly. There's no, we're not beating around the bush here.
No, there's no fluff work with it.
No. He'll give you his opinion, whether you agree with him or not, but he's going to put it out there, and I appreciate that about him. And look, he was wonderful to me as far as when I was kind of breaking into the industry. I had two little files that somebody needed some legal work on involving sheds, and I was like, what is this that I'm even doing? I don't even know. I'm trying to figure this out and figure out this business and this industry, and and then in doing that research, I've come across APRO and the what was in BSRA, but NSRA, and then just getting connected with Ed through that was great, and something that I couldn't have done otherwise. I mean, just a wonderful man, a wonderful mentor in the industry, and certainly one of a kind.
Well, he's going to be missed. I mean, Ed, you're always welcome to come on the show. I always tell him that, but he's like, I'm good. I'm good being retired. He's really excited about that.
Yeah.
So getting a little bit of background on you, I've got that you were born and raised in Mississippi, so you didn't go very far. At least
right.
that's good, right? You're in Jackson now.
That's
But
right.
you graduated from Ole Miss. You went to the Ole Miss School of Law. You are practicing out of Jackson now. You are you were rated by the Martindale-Hubbell, basically the highest possible peer rating for ethics and legal ability. That is it's a mouthful, right? I can't even say that, right? It's a mouthful. That's awesome. And then you were admitted to practice in Mississippi, Texas, North Carolina, as well as the U.S. Courts of Appeal of the Fourth and Fifth Circuits. You are a busy guy, sir.
Busy. Like I said, when I first started out here in Mississippi, born and raised in, I think Mississippi, I think I saw the other day that we have the highest percentage of born and raised, population in the country. So people, I was born up in the Mississippi Delta, which is a lot of farmland. And people say when you kind of get that Delta mud on you, you can't get away
Get it
from it.
off.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's my home. And but yeah, done work here in Mississippi. Clerked for a judge up in the Delta, and been in private practice since 2012. And I got admitted to the North Carolina bar from here. I've done some work up there, and now admitted out in Texas as well. So just trying to help as best I can wherever I'm needed.
Well, I tell you what, Florida is not like that. I don't know if Anthony views. We are transplanted from every place
Right.
on God's green earth.
Right.
I seldom know a few people that are actually born in Florida and from Florida. They're like, we all transfer from somewhere else. So it's great to hear that. So,
Yeah.
talking about your history and a little bit of the accolades that you have, being that you are from there, what led you to be involved in the rent-to-own industry? Because that it doesn't seem like I would be tracking that, but here you are.
Yeah. It was interesting. I was working with this firm, and it was a predecessor to this current firm that I'm with, Wilkins Patterson. But we did a little bit of work. This firm is primarily workers' comp defense, insurance defense, a traditional small defense firm. And like I said, I had one or two clients that sort of offhanded had some work as far as a shed rent-to-own agreement. And I took that and just thought, well, if these guys need some work, there's probably more out there. There's probably something else out there with this industry. And started looking around and found, like I said, found NSRA, found APRO, and realized that this is a large industry with people, great people, wonderful people, but that might need some legal counsel somewhere along the way. And, it started off with doing things, and still do, collection, repossession type work, because, with the sheds, obviously we're talking about a much larger, like, cash value of a property than some of the traditional APRO items that you might rent on from a store. So there's it's the same transaction, but it's a little bit of a difference in terms of the legal world, just because there's a higher value item out there. So started off doing collections, repos, and grew from there to working on contracts and bankruptcies and business formations and operation agreements. And it just grew and grew and grew. I had no idea. I didn't expect to have this as like a primary part of my practice. I mean, that was certainly unexpected, but it's been a wonderful opportunity and a great group of people to work with, wonderful niche practice area. So it really just kind of happened. I mean, it was not something that I originally thought of. It just kind of came to me.
I'm gonna fill you in on something, Nick.
Yeah.
Every time I do this show, one of the main questions I ask is, how did you happen to get into the RTO industry? And everybody, and I'm telling you, we're batting probably 99 out of 100.
Uh-huh.
I had no idea. I don't know. It just something that came up, and it was a big old hurdle, and I stumbled right over it. And before I knew it, I was in it 100%.
Yeah.
It was just face first, and all of a sudden, 20 years later, this is what I do.
It's true.
Same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's not an unfamiliar story for attorneys. I mean, fresh out of law school, I mean, who knows what you're going to do, where you're going to develop a practice, what you're going to really love
Right.
about the law. And so it really was. It was a blessing and something that I really enjoyed, and so just tried to grow it, and it's been wonderful.
So I got a question. I'm gonna walk off the beaten path for just one
Right.
second. Charles is he's on the show all the time. We do a lot of things together because APRO and the RTO show are so close. And I jab him all the time because he's like one of the smartest guys I know. He's actually married to one of the other smartest people I know. But when you guys get together, is there just legal jargon that flies everywhere and you guys get deep into the books, or how does that work? I can just see you guys like having a drink and just talking about all kinds of wild stuff.
I think that's true for all lawyers. I mean, people like to may not want to be around because you can get deep in the weeds quick with legal stuff and legal jargon, and but no, Charles is obviously awesome at his job, does a wonderful for APRO, and he's been wonderful for us and the shed industry too, and he's great, a great resource.
He has been. I agree with that. So let me get back on track here. Given all the stuff that you've accomplished, and then being able to be in the rent-to-own industry, and you do a lot of things day to day, from compliance to contract review, revision, the UCC matters, and fair debt collection practices, and all this stuff. What is probably one of the first things that when you get a call from a client that's part of the NSRA, what is like one of the first things that you hear? Is it based on collections, or is it like, how do I stay out of hot water, or I'm already in hot water, how do I get out of it? Like, what is one of the first things that you get when somebody calls you?
Well, that's a good question. And it really depends. I mean, if it's somebody that I have a relationship with and I've worked with over the years, usually it's that, we're trying to stay ahead of some issue, or they've come up with a new idea or something they want to run by me, something like that. Now, if it's the flip side of that is if it's somebody I've not had a relationship with in the past, it's usually that something has gone terribly wrong.
Anthony has gotten worse. That's when I called my producer, that's what it was. He's like, he doesn't know me, but it's bad because I need you now. See, I understand that. When you know them, it's like, hi, hey, dude, what's going on? If not, it's like, yeah, you're in trouble. You shouldn't have done that. Right?
Something went wrong.
Let Nick come to the aid, man. Let me tell you. So when is the contract language in what the sheds do, is it different than the agreement language that we have on the traditional side? Have you been able to compare those two and see?
For the most part, the biggest issues are the same. So, like the things that keep it an RTO transaction are the same, whether it's a TV, a couch, or a big shed. We're still talking about the same documents, the same disclosures that are required state to state. And so each state has a rental purchase agreement act. Pretty much every state. I think it's 47.
47, correct.
And and so each one is a little bit different. A lot of them are generally the same, but yeah, in terms of the transaction, it is the same for sheds, and it's the same for a traditional rent-to-own type.
So we fall under a lot of the same laws.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so when somebody has a company, right, and they cross state lines, we have guys that are in state only, and they only worry about the Florida statutes, and then you got some people that are, multi-state, they're crossing state lines. How important are you in those conversations when you're going, okay, you're based out of Florida, but you've got something in Georgia, Louisiana, North Carolina, and we've got to tweak this out? I mean, those got to be some pretty in-depth conversations.
Absolutely, and it's very important, obviously, because some states are more litigious than others, and some are easier to deal with, and some are not. Some are worse. But yeah, anytime you're looking at going into a new state, it's very important to get a full picture of what you're going into and a full picture of what their disclosures require.
Let me ask you something. Are you getting everything out of your rent-to-own business? If you're not an A-Pro member, then the answer is probably no. Look, advocacy is A-Pro's bread and butter. This is why they were created and what they do best. But here's the thing. A-Pro membership is about way more than advocacy. A-Pro connects you to the movers and the shakers of the industry, people who've been there, done that, and they can help you do it even better. A-Pro's monthly webinars give you expert insights and actionable takeaways. It's like having a masterclass for your business every single month. Got questions about complex regulations or sticky situations? No problem. A-Pro's legal hotline gives you direct access to experts who have got the answers. That's a peace of mind that you can't put a price on. And let's not forget the resources, news, updates, and tools that keep you ahead of the curve. Scholarships for your team? Check. Disaster relief when you need it most? Double check. A-Pro is your ultimate support system in the rent-to-own world. So stop settling for less. With A-Pro, members get more. More support, more connections, and more success. Head over to rtohq.org and join the A-Pro family today. Because in this business, more isn't just better. It's essential. See you at the top with A-Pro.
Another important thing with that too that sometimes gets missed is the advertising requirements and disclosures, because some states may have a specific advertising statute that say you've got, if you advertise at all, you've got to put out the full gamut in terms of what the cash price is, what the RTO price is, what the cost of the lease is. And some
Oh,
are,
wow.
and some, yeah. So you have to have I think basically a sales sticker, or something like that if you're advertising in certain states. So, you may be operating in one state and advertising in some others. You need to be aware of what those requirements are.
I did not know that. Actually, I would figure it'd be more in collections, on the collection side. Can you imagine, Anthony? We're trying to read the long list of stuff because we're on radio, and then you got the. You remember that guy who had the little cars and the speed used to speed
Yes.
read? You remember that? That's,
Yes.
Come get this sofa over here, and Bob's rent to own, and then you got to go to the prices and make sure it's at this one.
Micro machine.
Fine print.
The micro machines. That's it. That was the guy, right? So you get a 30-second ad, and 15 seconds of that is just the guy speed reading all the stuff that you got to do.
Right.
But I figured it would be more on the collection side because I do, and I guess it just never really done. I've never been in your shoes in that sense, but I figured I've seen some collection differences between one state and another. How many times you're allowed to call, how many messages you can leave, and what can you leave, what can you say, what can you do when you're at the home, what can you say, and what can you do whether they're there or not there. So I know that that's always an important. It's always important to make sure you know all the laws, but going in between states, that's a lot of laws to know. Real quick, what would be two states that you're saying, that you would in your mind go, these are completely different? Like one goes, it's pretty simple, easy going, and one is completely different. Would you know that offhand?
Yeah. So I think of a state like California.
Okay, he shot out California for. I should have known that. Right?
Should have known. It was coming.
Cali is they have their own branding. This is already in 49 states. It's good, but not in California. We have our own way of doing it over here.
That's right. It is what it is. But so sorry to all my California friends. I throw them out there, but they're just one that where it's a little different. Certain types of, and I think of a state like New York where you have a disclosure requirement where you have to have a certain box in your lease, and it has to spell out certain items. And California came to mind because of a maintenance issue. I think it's where they, you as the lessor are required to maintain the property. And in most other states, you can put the maintenance requirement onto the customer, which is really a big issue with sheds. If you have an issue with your shed, you are responsible in California for going out there and making sure it's fixed, whatever. And so I compare that with a state like Mississippi, where I am, or Texas, where you may not have that type of a requirement, a bit more laid back on some of the disclosures, things like that. Yeah. And then you have some states West Virginia comes to mind, where we've had some litigation in the past several years, which is something that you really want to be aware of, and so and has maybe some requirements like the caps that you are allowed to charge for an item. So I think in West Virginia it's 240% of the cash price.
Right.
So and then you have like Mississippi, there's no such cap. It's basically just what the market bears. So those are some of the big differences, state to state. You also have things like the reinstatement provisions that vary from. There's so many out there for reinstatement, and I was interested to learn.
I put him on the spot. He doesn't have the nose. I put him on the spot. He's like, man, he had to ask me that. There's like 15 different ones, Pete. There's 15 different ones out there.
But Pete, I was interested to learn at APRO, at the legislative conference that we went to, that a lot of the companies through APRO offer some sort of a lifetime reinstatement.
Yes.
And that's new to me. That's new to me in terms of the sheds. That's not something that I've seen in the shed world. And so that was interesting.
I don't know how the logistics work on that. If I bring one back and then, if it's sold or whatever the case is, do I get something back in equal or the same value, but it's a different color, it's a different model, whatever the case is? Do I go back to the same? So I do understand that might be a little different, but it could be an avenue to get people back on the books, so to speak, because that is something that we do. It's a little easier for a couch and a TV, but I will say that, if it's something that you guys don't do, maybe, always looking at new avenues and ways to make it work. Exactly. I'm glad you mentioned New York because there's some current cases in New York. There are two laws that are really kind of standing out. How does that do they affect the shed rent to own side as well? Because I know that it's really going to affect the furniture side.
I'm not. I've not explored that much, and that's a good point. I need to probably get in on that, but it's not something that has come across my desk yet. So I need to check in on that before I say something that I shouldn't.
Well, I tell you what, right now, the next time you talk to Charlie, you say, "Listen, Pete told me, and I need to talk to you about those two laws in New York. We got to figure out if we are going to be involved in that, because the NSRA could unfortunately be inadvertently involved into it, right. And then you got all stuff that you got to kind of retroactively go after once all these laws are passed instead of being proactive on it, Exactly. So, what? Talking about some of the things that you do, because I know that you handle some bankruptcy as far as something goes, a lot of rent-to-own dealers don't think about bankruptcy as they're going into it, right? They're thinking either, repossession if they can't pay for it, or they pay it off. They do some type of same as cash. They get it. It gets taken care of. We do that. But bankruptcy is not something that they think about. How does that work in the shed industry as far as the rent-to-own shed side?
Well, it's a project that I've really enjoyed, actually. And it's something that I do think guys on your side should look into, because there's so much in the bankruptcy world that you as the leasing company can do yourself. You don't have to have a lawyer to go file your own proof of claim, your own, file a request for notice so you stay on track of what's being filed in the case. And what I've tried to do is just work on that education side of it, work with my clients and leasing companies in terms of what can you do that you don't need me for. So I'll train you, I'll train your staff, and that way you don't need a lawyer. In a big percentage of the bankruptcy cases, the leasing companies can do those things themselves. If you learn how to file a proof of claim, if you learn to call the debtor's lawyer and talk to them about it, you can resolve so many issues, and you can probably get paid, if not the full value. You're going to get probably some money out of it that you wouldn't have otherwise gotten. So in the bankruptcy side, for sheds, it's, same process. It's a lease. It's a true lease for purposes of bankruptcy. So you should not be classified as a secured claim, but as a true lease. So what that means is the customer has to either assume the lease in its entirety or reject the lease. And if they assume it, they should keep paying you just like they were directly through the plan. Now, there's some caveats to all that, but in a perfect world, that's how it would work. Perfect world.
Man, I love the perfect world sound.
Right.
I need to go there. But so
Yes.
Nick, tell me about it, because you you're saying things that really resonate with the traditional side. I would love to see you at RTO World having a 1 hour segment where you're telling people what they can and should do, whether they need to get a lawyer or not. At least these are the steps that you can take in your state to do something better, or at least, hey, I represent these many states. This is what I can tell you in these states, because I know guys who would really, really be interested in what you have to say. Again, Charles, give me a call, but I'm just saying I think that it would have some traction. And if it doesn't, we need to have another podcast where we're doing nothing but bankruptcy, because I can tell you right now, that is fascinating.
Well, it's obviously bankruptcy is a federal system, so you have so much state to state that is the same. You have the same forms. So you're not dealing with state specific issues a lot of the time. I mean, with state specific laws you are, but like in terms of the forms and the practice and the procedure, what you do in bankruptcy is pretty uniform state to state. And at least in Mississippi, and then I do bankruptcy work in Texas and some in North Carolina too, but I find that the bankruptcy bar is pretty small. The guys that you tend to run into in terms of who the debtors' lawyers are the same guys you see over and over and over and over again. So you develop a relationship with those people. And what I end up doing a lot of times is I'm training them on how they should be filing their bankruptcy cases so that they don't have to respond to an objection, because they get paid, basically a flat fee for filing a bankruptcy case.
Right.
They don't get paid any more for responding to my motion or arguing with them about so they don't want to. They don't want to have to fight with us about it. So once they kind of understand the transaction and know what the deal is, they know to file it as a lease. And it just, after a time or two, you get real comfortable with it, and, you have a lot less problems down the road.
What would you say is one of the biggest mistakes that you see when an RTO dealer is dealing with a bankruptcy case that comes across their desk? I have Miss Jones now, who's now in bankruptcy. What are some of the shortfalls or the pitfalls you see them doing right up front that you're like, you probably shouldn't have done that, or let me advise you?
Well, but probably the worst is when put that bankruptcy notice. I'll put that on the back of my desk, and I'll think about it tomorrow. I'll think about it tomorrow, then I'll think about it next week. I think it's what is the quote? The best thing to do is the right thing, and the second best thing to do is something. You just be active, do something. It's just look at you have really important deadlines in a bankruptcy case, and deadlines to file your claim, deadlines to respond to certain motions or objections. And so, if you just put it away and don't do anything, you're obviously going to run the risk of not being able to respond. So that's the biggest hurdle, is just getting people comfortable. A lot of people just don't like the idea of, I got to do something about this bankruptcy case. Just getting people and companies comfortable with the response.
Well, you're absolutely right about that, because the last one I got, I didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Right.
It sat on my desk, and I think it started beating its own heart, and I was just like, no, darn you. Those things get scary. They really do. But and that's why I said, like, if you don't end up doing that, I would love to have you on again to have that conversation about bankruptcy, because listen, there's a lot of guys that I know are going through something at this moment, and they're like, I'm trying to do it myself. I don't really know if this is right. I ended up having to hire a lawyer because I don't know what to do. And it's like, and here's the thing, and I'm not trying to blame anybody. I understand why people go into bankruptcy. I understand what's going on. But from a dealer side, the question is, how much time am I spending on this? Mm-hmm. How much time am I getting, how much am I spending with my legal counsel? How much is that going to cost me versus what I'm getting out of it? Now, the traditional side might be a little different because, sofa and loves or bedroom sets or dining room tables, they have a finite amount that they're worth, right? Yes. So the first time that I go to legal counsel and we sit down for 2 hours, it's not worth it for me to go,
Correct.
I mean, for anything. So, and again, I'm not saying that, as a consumer, that's not a concern. Of course, obviously, if you're in bankruptcy, it's because you have something going on. But dealers also want to protect their assets as well. So as it's coming in, there's always that, all right, what can I do to make this more beneficial for myself instead of just going straight to the bottom line and writing it off? Because the moment that I get somebody involved, yes, this term might be 18 months and we're only 3 months into it, but is it really worth what I'm going to spend as soon as I pay an hourly rate or even a flat rate or whatever the case is?
Right.
So I'd love to have that conversation with you. You're going to have to put, I'm just going to tell Anthony, you got to put that on the calendar, man. We got to reach out again. So
yeah, we could spend hours on that.
We're going to book a few hours on that one, Anthony. We're going to be like, listen, so you guys might fall asleep a couple times, but it's worth listening to. Let me tell you right now.
It's a marathon.
It's a marathon. We're going to have to, parts. We can do that in parts. We can do the bankruptcy series with Nick. I like that.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your role in the NSRA. So you serve as legal advisor and you're on the board of directors. And the board is made up of RTO owners and CEOs and stuff. It was founded in 2009 by Leland Ulrich. And 2009, when we were talking about APRO and the things that I've done because I've gone through the Legends series, we're talking about the early 80s. So the NSRA is not really that old. So, I had some questions in here on the later half, and I was like, wait a minute. But it hasn't been here as long as APRO has. It hasn't been here as long as some other things. So maybe that's why there isn't so much crossover, which we'll get into. But, how did you get connected with the NSRA directly? So you got into the legal advisory role. So you obviously found it. And then they were like, Nick, come here. We like you that much. Like, we need this. We need somebody who knows something about bankruptcy. So, how did that come about? So you found Rent to Own and then NSRA, and then you're on the board. This is just like a rocket trajectory. How did this happen?
Well, so I was a member of the advisory board, which was just trying to help them steer through all the issues that they deal with. But now I'm just a general counsel to the board, so I'm not actually a board member. But I advise the board, and it's just years of relationship building and going to meetings and attending their events, going to an APRO event, and you just develop those relationships and work with people that you know and trust, and who come to know and trust you. And so we had at some point early on, there was an attorney involved that was helping the board some, and eventually I was able to start doing that as well, and I took over that position and became counsel to the board of directors, and it's been wonderful. It's made up of such good people, that are passionate about this industry and about their sheds, and it's been a great process and a great learning experience, honestly. And they're just great people, happy to be a part of. We call ourselves, we kind of leech on to the mothership of APRO. We're sort of underneath that big umbrella, and it's just been a fun experience.
Well, I want to get to know the Shed guys better. I'd love to see a lot more of you at the APRO events. I actually wanted to get with you at some point because I actually want to see if I can make it to some of the Shed events just to be involved in that, because the RTO show covers everything. So this year I made a promise myself. One of the business plans that I came up with earlier this year was not only is it going to be the traditional rent to own, it's going to be the tire and wheel, it's going to be the shed, and we're going to incorporate virtual rent to own. So that's what I'm working on this year to kind of start incorporating all that. And when I seen that you guys were there, I was like, oh my God, this is something that I really don't know about. I'd like to know more about it. I think the listeners would too. So I definitely want to be a part of that. Now, I will not say that I've never listened to any other podcasts about what's going on, but we shall not mention their name on here. But we will say that I'm very interested in finding out about it. And that's how I found out a little bit about what I did. And, going forward, like I just want it to be all encompassed. I want to have all part of that. So I'm going to lean on you a little bit, if you don't mind, at some point in time to be like, hey, I got to get involved in those people. But is it safe to say like you're like, and this is just for the listeners so that we can say that you're like the Ed Wynn of the NSRA? Is that kind of...
I can't go there. I can. there's there's no such thing as anybody being the Ed Win of
Well,
something.
we got some follow up. Hey, listen, Nick, I'm just reading on here, man. There's a lot of weight on this paper. I think you're doing a great job so far. So I'm just going to say that. Um,
Well,
so,
it's yeah, no,
bes-
it's fun. It's fun. It's a fun job, and you know, it's wonderful. But
well,
yeah, come to an event.
you never work a day in your life if you're doing what you love.
That's true.
But I will tell you, with that statement comes you work a lot.
Yeah.
Okay? It might not feel like work, but you end up working a
Uh-huh.
whole lot more. So, is
Way more.
way more, right? So, is
Mhm.
there anything coming up besides New York? Is there anything coming up on the legislative shelf there that you're going, hey, you know what? We need to pay attention to this and the shed side, or maybe even the traditional side, and go, this is probably something that you guys want to be aware of. I know you said something about West Virginia. Is there something coming up on the horizon that maybe somebody as a rent-to-own dealer should be looking out for?
You know, I try to stay abreast of all the changes and updates, and I get updates weekly on in my email from my Lexus account and Gmail and Google. I set all these alerts. Um, the, and when we were in DC, it was sort of refreshing because we didn't have anything on the federal side that we were really worried about. You mentioned the issue in New York, but other than those things, there's not a whole lot of urgent pressure that I see that anything's barreling down or breathing down our necks, which is good. We like it that way. Um, so I'm happy with where we are. I'm happy with there's always some things I would like to see cleaned up and state from state to state, but it, staying on the offensive like we did in
Yeah.
DC, and not having to play defense so much. But so no, I'm happy now. One thing that is sort of interesting that I see a lot of here lately is talk about rent to own housing. That has been kicked around a lot, and they use this term rent to own housing. It's really not a rent to own transaction. It's something different. And I would like to see us distance ourselves, at least on the shed side, and from people that are using that term and that are engaging in that. In fact, when we were in DC, a couple of legislative aides asked if this had to do with the housing bill that had passed lately, and we were like, "No, this is totally
Yeah.
different." So,
Yeah.
um, it's not so much of a major issue, but something that I'm aware of because I just don't want it. I don't want to see that crossover and that people getting confused about what what APRO clients and what NSRA shed builders are doing versus what somebody calling a rent-own housing market is doing. I think it's
Oh
totally.
yeah. So, a little bit behind the scenes, I probably get hit up once or twice a month by somebody who's looking up the keywords of rent to own, and I get them all the time, and
Yeah.
they'll be in the inbox. Hey, we want to schedule a podcast. Hey, we want to do this. Guys, we don't do the same thing. I'm like,
Right.
I tell them all the time. I can tell you didn't go to the website because we don't do the same thing. It's just
Yeah.
not the same transaction. So I agree with you 100%. Because I even looked into it. I looked into it and said, "Oh, this is not. I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want to.
Uh-uh.
I don't want to muddy those waters."
No.
So I noticed the NSRA is working toward company certification and industry standards. Is that from kind of what APRO has done and said, hey, these are the bylaws that we go by. This is how we expect you to kind of conduct yourself to be a member of APRO. So that's how you can expect them to be as a member of the NSRA. Like there's certain bylaws and things that we want you to do, certain way that you're going to treat the customer, a certain way that you treat, certain instances, whether it be bankruptcy, whether it be your collection practices and stuff like that. Is that kind of the same?
Yes, I would say so. And we adopted a code of ethics back maybe last year or in the last 18 months. And really that was adopted in large part with talking with Charles and APRO. And let me just again say that Charles was really a driving force in this collaboration, and how great that is because we've seen on the shed side uh, great teamwork between APRO and NSRA, and and how happy I am for that. And Charles has just been a driving force for that, which has been wonderful. And so, yeah, in fact, after the APRO event in Omaha last year, I got with Charles and uh, and used some of his slides for my for a talk I gave later,
We
and
borrowed. We borrowed.
we borrowed with permission, and
There you go.
but yeah, so what we're trying to do at NSRA is we've launched a membership campaign for shed dealers and shed manufacturers, rent-own companies, and yeah, and part of the idea behind that is, we want to hold each other to a higher standard. We want to make sure that people who are members of the NSRA are agreeing to abide by these bylaws and these, code of ethics, that we're treating people the right way, and that you can stand out among, um, to your customers as, hey, I'm a member of the NSRA and I agree with all these things. So that's been a driving force behind it, is just trying to be the rising tide for the industry, and I think that's been a key part of it.
I mean, I love it because it really does, especially when you're going to DC on a federal level, to be able to say that we're representing the association, that if you are a part of the association, you have to fall within these guidelines. You have to collect right, you have to sell right, you have to disclose right, you have to make sure that you treat everybody with this certain type of understanding that, hey, you are number one. We're not going to treat you secondary or any less for being what, in the situation that you're in, if you're in any situation or not. And I think that does stand out. Now, we had talked a little bit earlier about getting you the bankruptcy talk at RTO World, which is happening in August of this year. But like, is there a shed RTO World, for lack of a better term? Is there like a what you do in the NSRA for that?
Yes, good question. We're going to have a shed event coming up in September. We'll have the NSRA event, and that'll be in Knoxville. So I think it's, off the top of my head, I think it's the week of the 20th or 21st in Knoxville. Yeah, that last year they put on a great event. The board does it all. I mean, it's a wonderful, non-paid group of people that do it out of, love of the industry, and they put on a fabulous event. And so we're rolling. We're rolling right now. I mean, we're only about 4 months out, so gearing up for that. And
I'm gonna do some homework, Anthony. We got to figure this one out. I know that we're gonna be at RTO World. I'm dragging Anthony along with me. We're gonna do some stuff over there. I don't know if we'll make it together over that one, but I would love to see at least, maybe I get one ticket. We'll see, Anthony. We'll see how good RTO World is. But I would love to be a part of it in some capacity, as far as like, seeing it and what is, any of the meetings or what happens. Now, I know that in RTO World, for the traditional side, there are meetings ahead of time. Now, there's the legal counsel meeting, there's a women's forum, and then, it goes into a day of basic learning. There's that industry training. There's that, that APRO. This is what we give back, right? So you have those meetings where this is how you sell, this is how you collect, this is how you do the back end, this is how you hire, this is how you maintain, this is how leadership training and stuff like that.
Right.
And then after that, you go into the hot show and you go into the sales event where the expo is, and you go and you buy stuff and y'all have a good time. Is that kind of laid out the same way?
It's similar. I mean, from year to year, some of the topics and speakers change, and some years we may be more focused on, because for the NSRA event, it's a 1-day event. So some years it may be more focused on rent-to-own management companies and collections. Some years it may be more focused on building and manufacturing, and so it changes from year to year. We have a lot in the terms of the leadership world. Wonderful speakers. We've had astronauts, we've had Secret Service guys, and
Wow.
Yeah, really, really cool, powerful speakers. John Delaney came last year, and uh, so a lot of focus on the leadership aspect of it. But yeah, and then um, there's there's usually some nuts and bolts type breakout sessions. So we'll have a breakout session where we may have one group talking about uh, software, software companies, and different things like that. I'll do a legal update usually.
Hey everyone, it's Pete Chow here from the RTO Show podcast, and I want to tell you about a company that's making a real difference in the rent-to-own space. Wow Brands. I've seen firsthand how they approach marketing. And let me tell you, it's not just about ads. Wow Brands builds complete digital ecosystems designed specifically for the rent-to-own industry. Their e-commerce and lead generation strategies are built to bring in qualified leads. And did I mention that they are actively working with the rent-to-own industry while also being members of APRO and TRIB? Listen, these folks are passionate problem solvers. They don't just slap something together, they design, build, and scale the kind of digital retail tools your business needs and your customers actually want. So if you're serious about growing, reach out to Wow Brands at wowbrands.com. I trust them, and I think you will too.
We'll have somebody doing marketing update or a marketing uh, breakout, sales breakout, different things like that. There's also other events over the year that I've actually never been to. There's something called the Shed Hauler Bash, which is where the shed.
That sounds fun, right? I
I
mean, just
know.
thinking about it, right?
And I've
Okay.
not been, and I've got to go. But the hauler guys get together and they put on a big event and get to show off all their toys and their big moving equipment and stuff. And I think they have a big time, but I have not been. So Pete, that may be something we need to tag along to.
All right. We got a third party now. We need to go. We need to go. That's what he's saying. We need to go check out what's going on over
Let's
there.
do it.
I would love to see two guys just with some sheds going down like the thing, and
Yeah,
who hauls it faster,
right.
quicker, right? I don't know.
It's sort
That
of,
would be cool.
I envision it as like those old, where we had the two guys up there doing the chainsaw and like who could cut the wood the fastest.
Right.
Yeah, it's like one of those. Who's
Yeah.
gonna?
I'm looking forward. Now
I
I'm
think
looking
it's
forward
great.
to it.
I would love to see it. I just hadn't gotten to it yet.
So, from your vantage point, how have these events changed the legal conversation in the shed RTO space? I mean, do you feel like since its inception, has the NSRA really made a difference in the RTO industry as far as shed? And can you almost tangibly see like this is where it was? Now these bylaws are here, the code of ethics. This is what we do. They have a legal counsel. We're getting together. We're now taking place and part of some of the stuff that APRO does at LegCon. Like,
Mhm.
is this a trail of breadcrumbs that you can see like steady growth in the NSRA?
Yeah, it is, and we've gotten more and more buy-in and more membership. And then the partnership with APRO has been great to help that as well. We do a NSRA board meeting. I guess we have two in-person board meetings a year, and one will take place at RTO World this year. So Charles has been great to allow us to have some space there to have a board meeting. So we'll all be down there, and you need to come meet some of the other guys. But um, yeah, and then and it I've just seen it over the years grow from a really close knit small group to something that we're in a much bigger space for our event now. You see people from across the country that come, and it, it it feels like we've made a difference in terms of the quality of the product, the quality of the contract, quality of the start to finish transaction, the relationship with the customers. It's just wonderful people that are a part of the NSRA, and I can say that without hesitation. That it really is great people and wonderful clients. So Yeah, I think it's we're certainly still growing, and we've got a lot of momentum, and so we're gonna keep at it.
Well, with the advent of the growth of the NSRA and the way that APRO is and how Charles and yourself are kind of ushering those to help one another, do you see a crossover happening or more crossovers happening in the future between the NSRA and
Yeah.
APRO and us going there and some of the guys from the RTO shed industry coming to our events as well?
Yes. Yes. Of course, I was in DC um, this past April, and um, Justin Hosey came to the shed event last year. Charles was was unable to make it, but he was planning to be there. He something came up, he couldn't make it, but yeah, and we'll be at RTO World, and just continue to collaborate. In fact, we're working on a project with Charles and APRO, where we're doing our data collection, sort of the state of the industry, I guess, for the shed side, which is something that the NSRA has attempted to do in the past, but really it never quite got off the ground. Um, Despite the good intentions, the product just wasn't what we needed. So we are excited to be doing a new industry survey this year, and that is as a partner through APRO, and we could not do it without them. And so they've been gracious to do that, because what it's going to do is really help us all. I mean, we'll be able to feed the shed numbers, basically what we find out from the terms of the shed industry's growth and numbers, and feed it into the APRO numbers, which should give us a bigger overall picture of the industry.
I think Nick's looking at my numbers. I think he's looking at my. That's exactly what I was going to ask you next. So I'm gonna change it up really really quick and actually something a little different, so it doesn't look like you've been reading my notes. But as we go through this, I would tell you guys, listen, I am so looking forward to kind of that crossover. I'm looking forward to be a part of what's going on the shed side, because it is new to me. I have done nothing but traditional RTO for the last 20 years. I am now in tire and wheel, and I can tell you I learn something new every single day. If you guys are new to listening to the show, please give me a call. Feel free to call me, talk to me, email me. And if you guys want to do a little sponsorship, we're not going to argue. Now, talking about that, do you have any numbers as far as the scale of what, the rent to own shed side is now annually?
It would be a total shot in the dark. I have some ideas, but I don't know that I want to throw that out there.
It could
I
be
have a
totally wrong.
I could be completely wrong, but I think that it will show a decent percentage in terms of the overall RTO industry. I think that we'll add some numbers to the bottom line of what APRO was able to put out on those legislative documents that we were able to pass out to the legislators and their aides. So yeah, I think coming back next year, hopefully we'll see sort of the bigger overall picture of that.
Well, you know, looking at it and looking at my notes, because this is something that I've really been curious about, being that, I mean, technically we're cousins as far as industries go. What has kept us from getting here until now? Like, why 2026? Well, how come this didn't happen years and years ago, when we're talking about sharing resources or lobbying together, or even cross-referencing some of the same customers that we have? I mean, I would imagine that we're aimed for the same target demographic. I know that sheds probably don't do great in the city, but as far as the rural areas, I mean, we are targeting the same people. In
Yeah.
your opinion, in your professional opinion, why haven't we done this earlier?
I think the NSRA was so small, and we were just such a little subset of the overall industry. I mean, we had guys from the NSRA that were, shed dealers going to APRO events in the past. But, it was just for their own individual businesses and to learn about rent to own in general. And, I think just as time goes on, we've kind of grown up a little bit on the shed side. We've kind of grown up to be a, a bigger part of the overall shed industry. And, we just, have been able to, I mean, obviously Ed came to our events in the past and, did his speech. And, it's just, we're basically operating separately and, but part of the same deal. And I just think over time, you start to see ways that we can work with each other better. And it took some vision from Charles and the team to just really help lay that foundation and groundwork. And it just takes a little bit of time and effort to get that kicked off, and then you get a little trickle, and it just continues to grow and grow. And I think that's just the nature of the process.
Well, I will say, I think it's getting together. I think I see some crossroads coming up. I see this is like in its infantile situation where it's not as big yet, but I think it's going to get there. I love to be a part of that. I want to be on the front end of that because I really, really think that this is some integration that we should really do. I mean, I know guys like Dan Jobrack of DataTrue who would probably love to have one of you guys sit down in front of him and he can explain what he does because there's some greatness in there. I don't want to steal any of his thunder, but if you guys ever reach out to Dan, tell him that the RTO show sent you. It's a customer program. It's a great program to be a part of. Looking ahead. And as we start winding down and coming to an end, like you've built a practice around an industry where most attorneys have never really been a part of or done at all, which sets you kind of apart. Do you ever have those conversations when they're like, "Hey, I'm a divorce attorney. Hey, I'm an injury guy," and you're like, "I'm a rent to own guy." And they're like, "Oh, wait a minute. We gotta stop and hear Nick's story."
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I usually just say I'm a shed lawyer, or something like that.
Let's break it down in simple terms. I am a lawyer for sheds, and if your shed ever needs legal representation,
Right.
I will take care of it. I remember when I first started, and I did it, and now I think it's a completely different story. When I first started, and I talked to people about being in the rent-to-own industry, I got a lot of looks. And they just didn't know much about it. They kind of had this idea or this moniker already stamped in their head, like this is the way it is, and this is what you guys do. And it's like, no, couldn't be farther from the truth. Let me explain this to you. Now, I don't feel like I need to explain as much more, but I do have a podcast, so maybe that is, maybe that's part of it. But I try to explain it to everybody. Like this is a needed industry, and we are everywhere. And I love the fact that I don't love the fact that we're separate, but I love the fact that we're coming together now, and hopefully this is just the beginning of what we can do together. So, I love that idea. I love that you're leading up to legal counsel, Nick. It's great that you're a part of this. I love being able to connect with you on this level. Just for sake of, let's say that anybody needs your help, how would somebody find you?
Well, I'm pretty easy to find. I can be wherever you need me to be. No, I'm in Jackson, Mississippi. I'm at Wilkins Patterson Law Firm. I'm the general counsel for NSRA, so you can find me in any of those ways. And I'd be happy to share with you my info. You can put it on there as well. So
now the NSRA does not have the NSRA website alone. There is something else, because I looked up NSRA and there was like 5 that came up. What is the website address again?
It is the NSRA.
The NSRA. There you go.
I think
Listen,
it's .org. But
we are the RTO show podcast, so I totally understand. But we had to be different than some other guy out there in Russia who has that thing. I'm just telling you right now, buddy. Mine is better than yours.
I think the other NSRA out there is the National Street Rod Association.
It is. It is. And there is actually one more. But so you can reach the NSRA at theNSRA.com. I've got apro at rtohq.org. you can, it's Martindale and Hubbard. If you guys want to just check him out and see, he is really accredited. He is really one of those guys. RTO World 2026 coming up. Nick, I am so glad that you're going to be a part of this. I am really looking forward. Maybe if I have an opportunity that I will see you again in September. We'll see how that works out, because I'd love to be a part of that and talk to you a little bit more. And if you guys have any questions for Nick and you don't know where he's at, you can contact the show at the RTOshowpodcast.com. You can hit me up at Pete@the RTOshowpodcast.com as well. You can hit me up on all the social medias. We got Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, where you're going to see this. Nick, I am so glad that you're on. Nick Gerard, legal counsel for one of the best things that are coming our way right now, the NSRA. Thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you taking out your time to be on with us today. And I'm going to tell you guys, as always, get your collections low to get your sales high. Have a great one.